Thank you. Welcome to the Municipal Planning Commission for Wednesday, September 4th. It is 5:04 p.m., a few minutes late because of an absent chair. With everyone's indulgence, we will get underway. As I said, 5:04, and I'll call the meeting to order. You've all had an opportunity to look at the agenda. Member Kentz.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Anyone have anything to add? All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. And then from our previous meeting on July 17th, there was minutes to be reviewed. Anybody have anything there? Was there a date concern?
August 21st.
Very good. Mine is.
You also have the minutes in front of you, so that might be, sorry.
My apologies. That's making sense now. How about the minutes I was reading from August 21st? Member Kentz.
I make a motion to adopt the minutes as presented.
Thank you. Did anybody notice any other or any irregularities or omissions? Doesn't look like it. All those in favor? You see none opposed. Thank you. So a single application today. Variance to approved conditions set for the paving of the rear of the parking stalls at 4806 Highway 2A. Senior Development Officer Dooley, want to walk us through this item, please?
Thank you and good evening, MPC. Well, I think it's an Elsie's. Yeah, thank you. All right, well, here we go. So the report summary, the subject parcel is zoned transitional commercial C3 district. And the purpose is to provide an area that is transitioning from industrial development to commercial development in areas having major thoroughfare exposure and in which uses create an attractive environment that is accessible to both vehicles and pedestrians. Administration does support the application. The decision today is a variance to conditions 18, 19, 22, 23, and 24 of a previously approved development permit. Condition 18 being that the applicant shall provide a minimum of 5 parking spaces. Each parking space must be a minimum of 2.75 meters by 5.5 meters. All parking spaces shall be hard surface to the satisfaction of the Development Authority. The proposal in front of the Municipal Planning Commission this evening is that the applicant shall provide a minimum of 5 parking spaces, being a minimum of 2.75 meters by 5.5 meters. Condition 19 is that all parking spaces shall be identified with concrete parking barriers and pavement markings consisting of white or yellow lines that are approximately 7.6 centimeters wide. And the proposal would be to waive this condition as the stalls would remain gravel and not pavement. For condition 22, the applicant will be required to hard surface that portion of laneway from the northeast corner of the parcel to connect to 48th Avenue in accordance with the City of Lacombe design standards. The proposal this evening is to waive that condition. And condition 23, all hard surfacing on the site and the laneway as shown on the approved site plan shall be complete within 1 year from construction completion. Again, the proposal is to waive this condition. For condition 24, prior to building permit issuance, hard surfacing deposits will be required, and that continues on in a quite lengthy condition. And the proposal in front of us today is to waive that condition as well. From the neighboring consultation, 17 property owners were notified and 2 responses were received in support. The first being just checking the box that it was in support. Administration has no response to that comment. And the second letter received was support the application, however, would like a shade added to the security light at the rear of the building. So in accordance with section 8.15.5 of the land use bylaw, all on-site lighting, including lighting on the exterior of a building, shall be located, oriented, and baffled so as to not create unnecessary glare or light trespass on adjacent properties. Administration will work with the applicant to bring the light into compliance. The applicant has been notified of this comment. And again, administration will work with the applicant on this as there are some requirements under AGLC. However, we do want to make sure that this concern is addressed. The proposal is that the applicant was approved for cannabis retail sales use in 2018, subject to 35 conditions of approval. As of August 26, 2024, there are 3 outstanding conditions of approval, and administration has been working with the applicant over the last 6 years to achieve compliance with the issued development permit. As conditions of the permit have not been fulfilled, the city is looking for solutions to close the permit. The outstanding conditions of approval are to complete a 3-foot fence along the property lines, complete landscaping at the rear of the site, and to complete the hard surfacing of 5 parking spaces. The applicant has indicated that they will install a fence and landscaping will be completed in accordance with the previously approved development permit. The applicant is requesting that condition 18 regarding hard surfacing of the parking spaces be removed and a new development permit issued. The parking lot is accessed via gravel alley at the rear of the site, and there are 8 public parking spaces on the city road that are angled paved parking spaces at the front of the site. On-site parking includes 5 gravel parking spaces, and the city does not have any record of complaints on the site regarding parking or the gravel lot. The rear of the site has a dedicated access from the lane being gravel. The city has not received any complaints as mentioned previously. After several years of working with the applicant to fulfill conditions of approval, the city sent the applicant a letter on January 9th, 2024, stating that if work was not completed or an application made to the request of variance to the conditions of approval by September 1st, 2024, the application would be closed non-compliance and deposits would be retained by the city. An application was made on August 7th, 2024 to vary the conditions of approval. The portion of the site that is currently required to be paved is only accessed via the rear alley, which is currently gravel. The city does not have concerns with the requirement being varied as the access is not from a paved road. The land use bylaw section 8.1820 states the following: in all districts, any area located in the front yard shall be hard surfaced or landscaped to the satisfaction of the development authority. And for commercial developments, all parking shall be hard surfaced to the satisfaction of the development authority. So in waiving this condition, it would be waiving this requirement or a variance to this requirement in the land use bylaw. If the application to vary the conditions of approval is granted, the hard surfacing deposit would be returned to the applicant, whereas the remaining deposits would be retained until such time as the landscaping is completed and the fencing requirement is met. This permit will replace the existing permit, therefore all remaining conditions of approval are recommended to stay the same as the original permit, excepting condition 18 and 19, which would be removed as the gravel stalls cannot be delineated by paint. Conditions 22 to 24 will be removed as well as they pertain to hard surfacing. This is just a picture of the rear here. Staff recommendation is that MPC approve the development permit application for a variance to an existing condition of approval on a previously approved cannabis retail store, subject to the listed conditions, and the applicant is here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Oh, thank you, Chair Creasy. So if I recall, to the east of Empire Auto, that business had to do hard surfacing, and there is still parking for that particular business on the same street as what this is. And I think every business has to comply with some hard surfacing. And this application is 6 years old. So in my opinion, I don't think this demonstrates being equal and fair to what the prerequisites are of other permits to other businesses that have to comply. And because, for example, where the all sports cresting, I think that building, that change of zoning in the past, they had to do paved hard surfacing, yet there's still parking on the city property in front of them businesses, just like this is. So I think this demonstrates some inconsistencies, and I don't agree with the recommendation. So I think every business has to have a certain amount of hard surfacing. I think this permit is 6 years old, and I will not be supporting this recommendation.
Through Chair, Grant, thank you. How do we define hard surfacing in the city?
Through the chair to member Contenti. So typically asphalt is what we consider hard surfacing. I'd have to double check in the land use bylaw if we have an exact definition, but that is the current development authority's interpretation of hard surfacing. I'm not aware exactly when the business is to the you mentioned to the east, but this gravel lane that I've taken a photo of here, everything at the rear of those sites is still gravel.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I didn't go the opposite direction. So and Development Officer Kirk has said our definition of hard surfacing is non-granular material.
Non-granular, okay. Because I was just saying I've seen some and we've done some hard surfacing with granular that is as tight and as hard as pavement. So that's what I just wondering if that's a hard, fast rule that we have. Non-granular. Okay, thank you.
Agree with member Oss on portions of this application. In a perfect world, yes, we would have compliance for each and every condition always. As we can all agree, we do not. On not just this application, but unfortunately many. I guess I do have a bit of an issue with enforcing someone to hard surface rear of the lot when it's onto a non-hard surfaced alley. That does not seem very logical to me. And as was mentioned, that is what was put in place some 6 years ago. I just wonder, does administration have any idea how many customers would be at this location concurrently?
To the chair, so that might be something the applicant is better suited to speak to. In my experience, I do drive that highway to and from work pretty much every day. I've never seen the parking lot at capacity. It could be the time of day I'm there, but typically I see one, maybe two vehicles in front of or around the business.
Good. Well, obviously you are the applicant.
Yeah.
Very good. Could you give us an indication what would be the usual number of patrons at any given time?
There's one, and they always park. There's no big parks in the back, and my staff is scared to park in the back because the house next door they bit the dogs have bit my staff, so they go back there.
Certainly an issue for another department, but not good in any event. So basically there are 4 stalls on the street that are, I mean, they're public parking stalls, but for all intents and purposes, they are for use at this business.
To the chair, so when I was roughly counting, I factored in 8 public stalls through these angled paved stalls. And then as you can see in this photo, I believe those may be staff vehicles there, but there's a couple parking stalls along the side. And then there's the additional 5 that just haven't been paved at the rear.
However, the stalls at the side are not contained on this lot.
No,
Correct.
she parks there to keep the front open because again, she doesn't like parking in the back because of the dog.
Right. But
It's a separate parcel.
correct. Okay. I just wanted to make sure clear. Very good. You know, when I look back when this first came in, the idea of the retail stores for cannabis was full of a lot of unknowns and whatnot across the province, and I think that we were fairly aggressive with the requirements, and I think in this particular case, I think there might be a little room for some adjustment, in my opinion. Like any business, we want to see them successful. However, as was mentioned by Member Ross, it's really unfortunate when it does drag on this long. And as much as I appreciate the proponent suggesting that they would comply with the other items, it has been 6 years for this one. So it causes some concern that they might not be on a time frame that is acceptable to us either. And how do we go about ensuring that that will in fact occur?
So to the chair, so if approved this evening, a whole brand new development permit would be issued. And when we issue development permits, typically there's a year period where you have that full year to complete the conditions of approval. So the clock would reset, so to speak, on those two outstanding conditions for the fencing and the landscaping. The applicant and I have had a few conversations about what that looks like moving forward. I think in this circumstance, from an administrative perspective, if that year passes and the conditions have not been met, then we would be retaining the deposits. They would not get returned. And unfortunately, the file would most likely just be close compliant at that point, unless we were directed by senior administration to pursue legal action, which happens in very rare circumstances.
Thank you. I guess I would just like an indication from the proponent. What are the intentions with those two outstanding items?
So I talked, here, just so.
Yeah, so you're the only one here with us today. Make yourself comfortable, have a seat.
Okay, so I had talked about doing like a fence with like chain on the retaining wall, like on the cement. But I want to make sure that that's okay before I go ahead and do that.
Which is fair. And that's certainly something that you can discuss with the planning department.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was okay, I think, but yeah.
Yep.
And then I don't know, I was talking about doing landscaping in the back, but that wasn't in there, so I don't really know what I would have to put, which we could also talk about. Yeah, we take care of all our weeds. It looks good. Even the neighbors.
Does anyone else have anything? Member Kent's.
Thanks, Chair Creasy. Well, it's not very often I agree with you, Member Ross, but this time I do. I actually think you brought up some valid points. It will set a precedence for the others that already have paved. And hopefully they don't come back and say, hey, we want our deposits back or our funding back from that. So I don't know. I agree with Member Ross. My other question is wheelchair access. Is there any ramps anywhere? I don't see it on, I think that's a high curb in front. I believe it is. It's really hard to tell. So if we go to the side yard, most likely it's on the side yard, and not being hard surfaced would cause quite, it's major. No wheelchair really can go in that. So I would say I think they call it barrier free is missing, that the hard surfacing would have covered, and most likely would have had a wheelchair access symbol on the hard surfacing with the line. So there's another reason I would not approve of it not being hard surfaced.
Through the chair to Member Kent. So typically especially in our downtown, you'll see this a lot. The wheelchair access, unfortunately, would be from like the road access where the depressed curb would come in. You do see that in the denser commercial areas because you can't necessarily have a wheelchair access in front of every single business. In terms of the accessible parking stall, that is typically something regulated once our building inspector goes in for his review. We do have some provisions in the land use bylaw to allow for accessible parking. I believe it's gravel, and they could, if they were to park in the rear, still access it with a wheelchair, but it's not your typical painted, delineated accessible stall. As for the deposits, the way those work, it's getting a little bit technical, but typically we take deposits up front for the work and they provide quotes. It's 100% for the landscaping, 50% for hard surfacing. Once the work is completed, those deposits are given back. We don't hang on to them. We only keep them when the work is not done. So in terms of other development permits or anything like that, they would have already got their deposits back. And this is something people can bring in front of us. Anyone can ask to have this requirement waived. Typically, the businesses are a little bit more substantial in nature and they have the funds and ability just to go ahead and do it. But it is something, it's an option for everyone if they do want to have it waived. We just can't obviously retroactively go back if the work's already been done.
Who's next here? Member Kents, you can complete your.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Creasy. So you're saying there is a drop curb in the front there?
No, is there? Well, like, so it's a park, like you can drive up on it, right? So you could go up there and then, like, it's not like, because there's the Sherry's right here, right, where you can drive into their, like to the right. It's like to drive in, yeah, yeah, so like you could go on the sidewalk.
So to Member Kent's, what I was trying to say is like the crosswalks, or as the applicants mentioned, the actual vehicular access, those are the depressed curbs I'm talking about. This, no, definitely, that's a hard curb there where my mouse is. Does that answer it?
No, because so the answer should be no, there's no wheelchair access to this facility. That would be the simple answer in this circumstance.
Yeah, I guess I would argue there is. It's certainly not particularly convenient or close by, but there is in fact access. But you know, it's definitely not in front of the business. That's correct.
Or the business over here, or.
Right, as was stated earlier, that
Yeah.
that alone does not make this business unique in that regard. Member Ross.
Thank you, Chair Creasy. So I do have a question for planning and development. Why would it be a condition for the rezoning of the businesses to the east of Empire Auto for them to pave that gravel when them same businesses have the same opportunity for parking as this does for this business? I've yet to see really in my 7 years businesses, and I've always, I think, been very consistent pro-business. Please, all due respect, but I'm here to be consistent too as well, where there was stipulated for the owner of that property to pave where it was gravel, and there's the same opportunity for in front of that street for parking on city's angle parking. Why is there not? And I know this is a huge lot. I don't expect it to be all paved, but I still think something should be paved to be equal as to what the majority of other business applications are expected. And like even for example, the two sides of the building of a vehicle length to give yourself and every business is supposed to have handicap parking. You know, so many stalls a handicap or so many stalls within their property. This is almost being taken advantage of because of the available parking that's actually being provided by the city. So there is no marking on gravel. And I just don't think this is consistent with what is a condition put upon other applicants. Every other applicant that's came forth to me as being on council or has been so many parking stalls on their property for X amount of square footage or whatever the condition may be. And I think I don't agree with this. It just seems not consistent to what, or even because I think other property owners that had to go to the expense of parking, paving, they're going to say, what's going on here? They don't have, why couldn't we leave ours gravel? Because this is apples to apples here. And I don't think that's fair.
I can speak to that if
I would appreciate that.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So through the chair to member Ross. So in terms of parking requirements, yes, there is a minimum required under the land use bylaw. We have a table that calculates that out. That specific table does not differentiate between paved or gravel. The section that does specify pavement or hard surfacing is that condition previous. Here, whoops. This one here, for commercial developments, all parking shall be hard surface to the satisfaction of the development authority. However, Lacombe is very unique in almost the majority of our commercial applications that we see once it gets to a development permit stage. The parking is quite limited because of our historic downtown. There's no room for the parking to grow. These lots, there is the shared parking lot that's a separate parcel, as Chairperson Creasy mentioned. But in terms of the other businesses, I can't quite picture where the businesses that you're talking about, but if they're in close proximity, they would have got notified of the request coming forward and would have also had the chance to voice opposition if they're within that 60 meters. I'm sorry, I can't quite picture it in my head. So those would be the things. It's this specific question or this specific section that references hard surfacing. Unfortunately, anything outside of that, it's actually not legislated in our land use bylaw. And there was actually an appeal that got brought forward about hard surfacing of a lane that the applicant won that appeal and did not have to hard surface because we don't have the provisions in our land use bylaw to request that.
My apologies if I may continue, but 60 meters notification, I know that's standard and I know the falls MGA, but 60 meters is not very far. So hence, if other businesses would have know this, for example, and it's 60 meters is 60 meters. That's an MGA. I've heard that many times, but I just know of other applications outside of the 60 meters as to be consistent for the general public to come up to myself that is part of decision making. You're in this position to make decisions. Is the expectation of businesses and citizens is to be consistent. So, and it's no disrespect to your business, but you think ahead of putting yourself in a position of, equal fairness, right? So I think any business, this is a retail, not really just a commercial business, this is retail. And I just think it's what business does not have a responsibility of hard surface parking. And I just find this very rare to have that come forth to remove these conditions in this sense.
So as I was just looking at Google Maps here to try and get a basis, there's been some suggestion we are comparing apples to apples or similar type properties here, and I'm just curious where we need to look along here. The two businesses that were mentioned, to me, do not appear to be paved from the alley. It does appear to be some hard surfacing in the front. However, there is also parking in the front where there is no parking contained within the lot on this particular property. So in my opinion, I would suggest that is a fairly substantial difference. There is the automotive dealership, which there again is substantially different because that is used always for automobiles in the front area. I can see that being done. The next business next door, which is a restaurant to the north, it certainly is not paved around the perimeter nor off the alley. So I guess I just struggle to see, as much as we all know rules are rules, I just find there is some differences in this application, I guess is all I'm saying, that may require a bit more of a broader look than just to say that they have to have parking, especially given the fact that if there truly is only one or two, and the reason I asked that for the number of customers there at a time, I'm not a particularly avid customer of that type of business. I've never been there. Not that that's here nor there, but in passing by, I do not see a tremendous amount of vehicles. If this was the type of business that did have a lot, then I I think that in fact it would have to be paved at the rear. However, if it's never being used, it's kind of redundant. I don't see it's really helpful for anybody. And hence the reason why I think we should have some latitude in this particular application. But certainly open to interpretation. Member Contenti.
Yeah, through the chair, thanks. Chrissy, to Member Ross, I'm just. Consistency and fairness. That's why we have these things here, and that's others have opportunity. You'll come forward and say. Others have the opportunity to do that, but I understand there is that look of fairness. They're trying to be equal in terms. That's what these visions set up for us. I'm more concerned about the access for your freedom. Something how I have consider. I'm not sure where I stand right now. I'm okay with hard servicing, but I'm not okay with which, sorry, which hard surfacing on the back would provide. Park in the back and roll around to the side and then into the front.
So through the chair to Member Contenti, and you actually might be able to speak to this better than I can, but I believe the building code does not specify the distance from a building from which an accessible parking stall is required. Again, the accessible parking stall isn't quite a land use bylaw decision. It's something that typically our SCO or safety codes officer would go in and take a look at a prior to occupancy. So when this building was constructed back in 2018, it would have had to pass those inspections from our safety codes officer, which it would have at the time. I'm not aware if the code has changed since then on accessible parking stalls, but that would have been a requirement when prior to the business opening.
The chair to development officer. Yes, thank you. That's a good reminder. There is no distance requirement. It does have to have barrier-free access. So your SCO must determine those other areas as being the access. So, yeah, so that helps. Thank you.
So I'm sensing that we've got a varied input on this particular item, and I'm just curious if in fact if a single barrier-free stall would in fact sway opinion in this item or not. And I guess I'll have you think about that for a moment and just put it to the applicant. If in fact there were a single hard surfaced parking stall in the back, would they be able to enter your business from the back?
My issue, I have 8 stores. Lacomb's been very hard to do this with, but I have one where we put asphalt up to the back alley and it just over years it breaks. And we're just a small business trying to get by right now in this economy. So that would be my thing. So I don't know if one single one in the back, if it would just break over time. You know what I mean? Because it's nothing really to attach to except for the front, say, if that makes sense.
It does, and that can happen. I guess there are other ways, whether it be with a concrete pad or whatnot. Basically, I'm trying to find a way out, because if this is a tie, then that is not in your best interest.
If I can figure out how to do one, I can.
Because I don't know for a fact, but my expectation is that a single stall at the back that could be used for accessibility rather, perhaps of a poured concrete pad, would be far less costly than mobilizing an asphalt crew to accomplish the same thing. And I guess I wanted to let you know that if that was a possibility, if that would be something that you would consider.
If that was a possibility, I will make calls tomorrow.
Okay. And then my next question would be then to the members of the commission, if in fact that would satisfy the parking portion requirements of the application to their satisfaction. Member Ross.
Thank you. Just have a question for clarification. So what you're saying is a concrete pad, that's a big example, the two vehicles are in the picture. If you put a concrete pad the length of the building, well, I'm just saying even on the,
It's not really my lot.
The site is not her property.
oh, where the vehicles are is not your property? My apologies. I interpreted that was, oh yeah, okay, sorry, drawings right on top of it. Yeah,
And where it like dips down is at the back. So if it was, I guess, like right.
so if you change a condition, so you had a vehicle length across the back of it,
Yeah,
you know,
well, a little wider maybe.
I personally just think there's got to be some effort for hard surfacing somewhere. I'm not saying the whole lot, because that would be extremely expensive. Like it's no to asphalt it, but I just, there has to be, in my opinion, some effort of hard surfacing, given that access of people, even if they could then go around for access on the sidewalk on the side and so forth, or whatever the case may be. But I'm kind of a little bit frustrated in a way how there is not some degree of responsibility of hard surfacing, because I do not recall hardly thinking, even across Lynn Thompson Industrial Park, where is there not hard surfacing in front of all them commercial buildings? You know, so I just think there has to be some commitment for hard surfacing.
I don't think that might be the best example because there are many there that do not.
Most do. My apologies.
To the chair, again, just for clarity, it also depends on which portion of the lot you're talking about. So again, front yard versus rear yard is a lot different. And the way this site has been developed, the front yard parking portion is their landscaping strip with their walkway up from the city paved parking. Typically at the rear of the property, again, being from a gravel lane, I think it would be onerous to require pavement there. Again, as the applicant mentioned, it does degrade over time when it's not tied into the same type of material. So yeah, it does depend on the front versus the rear and the side. Those do make a difference in delineation.
Member Contenti.
Yes, through Chair Gracie, thank you. I would support the application with change the condition, the variance, so that there would be one hard surfaced pad that would be available for barrier-free access in the rear. And then the rest of it could stay gravel.
Member Kentz.
I'm with member Ross on this too. I feel exact same way. And like I said, it's not rare we feel the same. But this is one I actually think is important, and I would not be supporting this application at all. So that's my take on it.
So even with the, as outlined by Member Contenti, with the barrier-free parking stall.
Correct.
Okay. Member Ross.
Thank you, Chair Creasy. So to further elaborate, what are you saying that's like a vehicle length across the back, then that, like, what's a vehicle length? How many meters? 3 meters? hypothetically?
I
Through the
think-
chair
I
to
think it
member
was-
Ross.
I think it was worded as a single vehicle stall. So whatever our requirements are for that,
It's
for a barrier-free stall.
7.5 meters by 2.75 meters, I believe. I've got it in here somewhere if you just bear with me. Um,
And perhaps there you are,
5.5 by
5.5 is-
2.75.
Member Kents?
Thanks, Chair Creasy. So the barrier free is not necessarily the parking of that vehicle. The barrier free is the access around the vehicle. You can put a pad under the vehicle. There's nothing for barrier free, but to get out onto pavement or get out onto concrete on the other side. So I guess I would support it only if the back was hard surfaced. I don't believe it should go all the way down to the back alley and through the back alley. But if that size went right across the whole back of the building in the parking lot, then I would support it. But to not have any at all and have hard surface under the vehicle would be absolutely ridiculous.
Yes, I think there was an expectation. The reason I asked the proponent, if in fact there was access to the building from the rear,
Well, you have to go to the front. But-
but there's access,
Yes. there
hard
is.
surfaced on
Yeah,
a walk.
And in 6 years, nobody's parked back there except for staff. So I just wanna, like, I don't know why it's. I don't get it. And if it was anybody else's business, they'd be the same. Nobody parks back there. I got video that shows that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's a small business. You want me to pave the back where nobody parks for $20,000? Like, I don't understand it. Like, I honestly don't understand. And I don't know if you guys have driven past there and think it looks awful. We take care of our weeds. We take care of the lot that I don't know who it belongs to weeds so that it still looks good. If you look, our front looks better than both businesses. One over here and one over here. We have good curb appeal. Now, I have video that nobody parks back there. I don't get why this is such an issue about paving a back that isn't used. Like, how does it bother you guys about it? Is my question. Sorry, I'm just getting a little frustrated because I just don't understand how people that don't even go there, how it bothers them.
I can sense that, and there would be some frustration. And I think probably what will be brought back is why, in fact, then was this agreed to at the time of permit?
I only took this over 4 months ago. It was my sister and my mom and dad, but my dad's sick now, so I'm taking care of it.
Well, certainly sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
And we had some interesting conversations in the past when
Yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't with me.
Yellowknife, I believe,
My
your
parents are
father, I
from
mean,
Yellowknife, yeah.
yes, okay. I thought it was, but it's been a day or two as well.
Yeah.
There was another light on. Nope. All good, okay.
I can address that now. Through Chair Creasy I was just going to refer to what Member Kent was talking about. So yeah, the pad I'm thinking about is not just a 3 by whatever meter, just so you can park under. It's got to be big enough where you could park either front or back access for a wheelchair, either from the side or from the back, and then be able to roll around to the side. So it'd have to be more significant, more than just a normal stall, in my opinion. But in saying all that, there's not a requirement for that handicap parking. So this is kind of I think a trade-off to pave the whole thing or to hard surface the whole thing versus having enough that will accommodate a parking stall for someone that can use it as a barrier free rather than having to go way down to the one side or the other to park, come up the ramp and then back through. So this is a sort of a trade-off that I am proposing.
Uh,
Senior Officer Dooley.
to the chair and everyone, I guess. So just as a process piece of conversation here, no matter the decision tonight, since it is a new application that's been brought forward, it is subject to the mandatory provincially mandated 21-day appeal period. So approve or refuse, the interested parties can appeal that decision. Whatever the decision is here tonight, i.e. adding conditions or things like that, when we go forward to the board to uphold that decision that MPC renders, we need to be able to justify that condition through our land use bylaw specifically, just as a process piece.
Thank you for that reminder. As was stated earlier, I'm grasping for a way forward to make it as financially viable for you to accomplish the obligations that you have. And I think that we're all in agreement that to basically to pave your entire rear lot is excessive, quite ridiculous, in fact. So the one stall that in order to kind of satisfy the barrier-free possibility access and whatnot all in one, while might not be perfect, was hopefully a little more palatable than the entire lot. But that's for the commission to decide. We do have a motion before us, and if you could just read it back in its entirety, please, Senior Officer Dooley, so that we're all on the same page for voting purposes.
So it would be resolved to approve the development permit application for a variance to an existing condition of approval on a previously approved cannabis retail store, amending the conditions to have condition 20, I think it'd be 36, one hard surfaced pad for barrier-free access at the rear of the lot.
And is that worded to your liking, Member Contenti?
Yes, through the chair, I wouldn't have a size. I don't know what it's going to take. So you're going to have to do some research on what it would take to.
Which is fair. I
So
think
yeah,
by worded as barrier-free, that's
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the motion before us. Any additional input or questions? Member Kents?
I don't believe that those numbers are clear, though. There's a motion before us, but it's for one barrier-free stall. And right now, I don't think we know what that stall is or that size is. So again, if that's the motion forward, I wouldn't be able to support it. As I said, I'd support if the back of the building was paved, the width of the building by the depth of one car length, then yeah, I would support that for sure. But not knowing what the motion or the size of that lot is going to be, or that parking stall is going to be, it's tough to support.
Okay, and just to be clear, there were no numbers to agree or disagree with. It was stated as being barrier-free. So what that number is, I'm suggesting, and I think the mover is irrelevant at this stage. It would have to be sufficient to properly allow use from someone in a wheelchair, which is a fairly clearly defined set amount according to provincial regulation, is it not?
Yeah, through the chair to Member Kent's, I'm just not confident in my memory of the numbers exactly. There is a specification for barrier-free stalls that we would subscribe to. So whether that's 5 by 7 or 3.5 by 5, I'm not exactly sure, but it'd be something in that ballpark where it's slightly larger than your standard parking stall.
Member Content.
Yes, through the chair. Yeah, so the development officer, yeah, what I'm looking for is those barrier-free stalls they have enough so that you can open a door or window or a thing and have a ramp. So they are significantly wider, not just slightly. They are significantly wider, and the depth as well, because you can also have access for loading and unloading from the back of a vehicle. So just the regular depth of a parking stall is not going to do it neither. It's got to be so that they could either load from side or front or back of a vehicle. So the numbers, I don't know what the numbers are, but that's the intent of my motion.
Yeah, through the chair to Member Contenty, we actually have a contact that handles all of the City of Edmonton's accessibility requirements that we could very easily contact to confirm, obviously during business hours, but we do have someone that would be able to tell us exactly what the regulations are.
Very good. Anything additional? So on the I will call the question then on the motion before us. All those in favor? Those opposed? Duly noted by a margin of 3-1. And just so we are clear on process, naturally, like any decision, it can be disputed, and you will work with the applicant to hopefully come to some sort of agreement to move forward on accomplishing the indication that was given here this evening. Very good.
Yes.
Thank you. And then, thank you. Certainly, it's certainly all that I expect that would be of particular interest to you. We do have some other minor items that we have to attend to, however. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you.
Do you have any permits issued by the development officer authority that were not taken care of at this level?
So we do have one development permit that was issued by the development officer, development authority since our last meeting. And that is for a secondary suite at 10 Metcalf Way. It just is discretionary use permits can be approved by the development officer if no opposition or appeals are received, and none were received. The permit was issued on August 27th, 2024. The applicant just informed me today, actually, he's not going to proceed until next construction season, but it has been approved.
Thank you. And out of curiosity, is that the first secondary suite in that development?
To the chair, I believe it's either the first or second.
Which made it a relatively easy decision, I expect then. Okay, thank you. Scheduled for our next meeting is September the 18th. Do we have any applications for that meeting? Very good, so we'll put that one on our calendars. That's all the business for this evening.
Motion to adjourn.
Appreciate that, Member Ross. All those in favor? We are adjourned.